Welcome back to Ultra Uncovered. I'm Russell Ditsworth, joined by Corinne Shalvoy. And today we've got a Fire Road episode that we're coming at you with. We are going to recap the Cocodona 250. And Corinne, you played an integral part in the Cocodona 250. I got to watch and listen to almost 20 hours of Corinne Shalvoy on the live stream. So tell us a little bit about what your schedule was like during Cocodona week and kind of what your mindset was going in, because I know you obviously you're still training, you're still trying to run, you're still trying to do those things, and I know you had some special nutrition pieces that you were trying to still achieve as you were there working on the live stream.
Yeah, so Cocodona 250. The letdown is real from the whole week. I was there Monday through Thursday this time. This is my third year in a row commentating Cocodona. So it feels familiar now. But that being said, like, man, it's just wild to see the growth of the race and the media attention around it, the fields that are assembled, just the uniqueness of every year, and the storylines that come out of this race are really, really, they're kind of above and beyond, anything else we see in this sport, in my opinion. So I think I knew what I was in for going in. And in the past, I have had 8 to 10 hour long shifts. And this year I only had 5 to 6 hour long shifts. I think everybody did. So that's a learning that I think we've had, that after that, people start to get pretty tired. And even on the third, fourth, fifth days, people are getting pretty tired because starting on Wednesday, it becomes a 24/7 live stream. So I had a little shorter shifts, which was great. I didn't do hardly any running while I was there. We'll talk about that. This is why Jamil has trouble training because of his work, because it's just, there's always something that needs to be done. And then when you're not doing that, you need to try to get a little rest because you have a 5 a.m. call time the next day, probably. So anyways, but it's so fun. Like, we had new voices on the mics, which I really enjoyed getting to know some of those people. We had some guest star appearances, field commentators like Tara Dower and, Jeff Browning sometimes chiming in from the field, things like that. So I think it's just a blast, and I think everybody should go out and just check it out for at least a day or two during the week. Here's what I appreciate. I can call it a work trip and it's during the week. It's not having to cover a race over the weekend because it happens Monday through Friday. So that's beneficial because I came back and had a weekend, which was pretty nice to have. But yeah, my schedule, I flew out Monday morning, went straight from the Phoenix airport, drove 2 hours to Flagstaff for a 2 p.m. call time, 2 to 7 on Monday, 2 to 7 p.m. I was on with Caleb Stevens, who did a great job. He's got a really good voice. He had done all his research. He's really like lively and a lot of energy. You can tell he's super excited and loves the race, and he ran it last year. So had that perspective, which was awesome. And then the next morning I had a 5. So then I tried to get some food and watch the end of the Nuggets game. And yeah, Troy Meadows and I got some noodle bowls in Flagstaff at the big bowl noodle, which was amazing. Highly recommend that. Then the following morning, 5 a.m. Call time 5. So, got up at 4. In the studio by 5 to 10 was on the air. And then what did I do that afternoon? Actually, then I had a little bit of a break. I had from that afternoon until the following day at noon. So I did go for a run that afternoon with some other live stream folks, which was great. We went out and had some food. And then the next day I got up hoping to find Dan Green, because the feed was supporting 4 athletes at this race, and Dan was one of them, and he was leading. I was hoping to find him at Munns Park, and I was way too slow. He was way too fast.
And so this would have been Wednesday morning,
Yes,
right?
this is Wednesday.
Okay.
Yes, Wednesday morning. Tried to go find him. I did find him at right outside of the what's the aid station before Wildcat? It's it'll come to me. Anyways, I missed him at that aid station too, but he had just arrived and just left, so I actually ran with him and his pacer 6 miles to the Wildcat aid station, which we can talk about. That was an awesome experience. Then I had to get back, eat something quick, and get back on the mic at noon again. And I got to call in the first, the first two runners, and then got to go see Rachel Entriken finish in person live in Heritage Square.
And that would have been Wednesday evening at that point.
Wednesday evening. I was up pretty late then. The following day, another 5 a.m. call time. Finished at 10. Tried to go find Randy Zuckerberg, but it wasn't going to align. Wanted to get a run in, but realized I needed to just drive south to Phoenix to get the car returned before the 6 p.m. flight. So
okay, so overall 4 days in Flagstaff, 4 live stream shifts of 5 to 6 hours, so 20 to 24 hours of live streaming, and also some running with the winner, and just some just absorbing all of Cocodona while you were there.
Yeah, pretty much sums it up.
That's fantastic. So the race started on Monday at 5 a.m. You were still en route. So the first time that you went on, it was 9 hours into the event. So you kind of got a sense of kind of where people were and kind of all that kind of stuff. So it sounded like you really had a chance to kind of dive into the competitive stories of the race during the event.
And I will say I'm pretty sure most commentators do this. Maybe not. Maybe it's just me. But when you're not commentating, you're listening to the live stream, because you have to stay up on what's going on, and you have to know like what's happening. And so you kind of feel like you're a fan just following it. And then for periods of time, you're actually on the mic, but you're pretty much like, other than sleeping, kind of watching it. And we, the Airbnb that we stayed at, we had it on the TV the whole time. So, those of us that weren't on the mic are sitting there just kind of watching it, observing, making our own commentary on the commentary.
Well, I think last year the live stream, at least when I was watching, it seemed like it peaked out around 5,000 or 6,000 people at one time, and this year felt like it was double that at the most peak times. And one of those was Wednesday, kind of when those leaders were finishing. I think there was 12 or 13,000 people tuned into the live stream at that one time. And I think that you said that out of all the live streams, they're coming up close to about 1 million views across all of them, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's huge. The first live stream, which is 10 hours long, I believe, has 131,000 views already, and it was streamed 8 days ago. And the live stream for day one, stream one from the 2024 race, I think has about 30 or 40,000. So we're talking, triple. And it was shocking, but it was from the gun. It was like people were in the waiting room, and all of a sudden at 5 a.m. on Monday morning, there was 5,000 or 6,000 people on the live stream. So that is just massive growth. But I think obviously a testament to the how Mountain Outpost does it and how they make it better every single year.
Yeah, for sure. I was working, except for Wednesday. Wednesday was my birthday, so I spent that day really tuned into the live stream, listening on my way to my run, on my way back from my run, during my run a little bit. And then in the afternoon when the winners were coming in, I was listening, kind of just driving around town and things like that. So that was pretty fun to be able to hear that. And then throughout the week, I wanted to be able to listen to all of it, but I wasn't patient enough to listen to back to things that I had missed, and I just went to the current live commentary. And so I think that worked for me. I probably caught 15 to 18 hours of commentary is my guess throughout the week. So it was pretty fun to follow along and listen to. So tell me this, what was something that surprised you during the event, that you were a storyline that you were following ultimately all the way throughout, that maybe you weren't thinking was going to be something that you would talk about, whether that's a person or a theme of the event or something like
I mean, two come to mind right away. One is obviously the weather and the conditions and the fact that everyone was heat trained, and we had the polar opposite of that, people getting hypothermia. Um, and having to run through mud that stuck to their shoes and caked on, five. We actually went on a little run Tuesday. Let's see, that would have been Tuesday afternoon. And we're running through just the kind of the single track outside of Flagstaff, not exactly Buffalo Park, but just outside of town. And we're running. It was me, Liam, and Troy Meadows. We're doing fine, and then we came to this little stretch that literally within like 2 steps there was this much mud on your shoe, and it was like, whoa, this is like what they've been dealing with and having to go through for like hours and hours and hours. So that mental toll on having to move in that, and talking to Dan Green about it, he just said, I couldn't run during it. It was futile to run because it wasn't worth how much you were going to have to work. So I feel like if I was in this race, like that would just be mentally really, really taxing, not to know when it was going to end, and all of that, like just a crazy factor. And then I think another thing that was surprising is I kind of thought, oh, we're going to tell the story of Brody Chisholm and Elliot Chisholm, 17 and 18-year-old who have done well, right? Brody got top 10 last year. And instead, we told the story of their mom because they dropped out, and their mom ended up in the top 10 overall, Jenny Chisholm. And so
yeah, Jenny.
that was so cool. And, I don't know, like I kind of just love just that juxtaposition of the stories from last year and this year with within the Chisholm family.
Well, and then there was another young man who finished towards the end of the race who ended up being the youngest finisher, a 17-year-old, and we'll have to pull up his name to give him the credit that he deserves. The Chisholm family has been known to have the young finishers, and then there's another 17-year-old out there that finished the race in 120 hours or something to that effect. The race has a 125-hour cutoff, which is really, you go into the sixth day. You get all 5 days during the week, all Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all 24 of those hours starting from 5 a.m. Monday, but from 5 a.m. Saturday until 10 a.m. Saturday, that golden day, that sixth day, that last 5 hours, there's still additional finishers that come in during that time.
Yeah, and there's a lot. Like, and I learned this actually from Hillary Yang because she's pretty familiar with these 200s, that like that third night is usually the lull and the low point. And I believe that they did this overnight shift, her and Claire, where they were overnight from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. And I think they only had 3 finishers in that time. And that's so hard. It's like the middle of the night. It's like, how do you fill that much space? But then you look at Friday and it's like, I looked at the tracker and there's just, you know, 50 to 100 people that are all within like 3 or 4 miles of each other. And it's like, boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
boom. So it's kind of,
And you're trying to give everyone their moment, right? As they're walking through Flagstaff, past the hospital, past the liquor store, past all these landmarks that lead them to you're trying to give them their moment of like telling a little bit more of their story. And a lot of them are finishing sequentially. It's tough.
yeah, it's hard. I also feel like if you were somebody who finished in the middle of the night, not on day 2, like the middle of the night on day 3 or the middle of the night on day 4, like you could have a very different experience. There could be nobody out there for you. Like even the people on day 3, those could be the top 10 women, and there's not too many spectators because it's the middle of the night. And then like if you finish at like 10 a.m., you might be greeted to this huge reception of people.
Well, it's spread out to start,
Yeah.
right? Like Dan finished in just under 60 hours, 58 and change. And that was in the daylight on Wednesday. So starting Monday, he went through 2 nights. He went through a Monday night and the Tuesday night and finished in the day on Wednesday. That night on Wednesday, it's still the rest of the top 10 women, even into the next day for the top 10 women. But then that following night, like you're talking about, that Thursday night probably was pretty empty. Yeah. Okay, I got something fun that I want to
Wait,
do during
real quick,
this
Russ, was there
recap.
anything that surprised you about the race this year?
Um, Yes, the weather absolutely surprised me. One of the questions that I had early on was I was wondering whether people actually carried the full 4 liters with how cool it was. I think they did, but maybe they decided to dump part of it if they knew that they weren't going to need all of it. Like, I don't know if I would carry 4 full liters if the weather was as cool as it
Mm-hmm.
was. And I think the talk was just like, hey, look how fast the course is going to be. Harry went out so quick, and we can talk about some different competitive strategies later, but he went out so quick and it was so cool. People are like, oh my gosh, they're going to break all sorts of course records. And then the weather really turned and made it cold overnight, changed people's strategies on sleep completely, I think. There's no longer an option overnight to just lay down in the middle of the trail if it's 30 degrees and raining. You have to make it somewhere where you can be comfortable. So the people that were deciding like, oh, when I'm tired, I'm just going to lay down and that's it. It's like that doesn't work in that kind of weather. And then the mud, of course, it slows people down. Dan, I think, made the smart move and just decided, I'm not going to run through this. I'm not going to lift and like stress my hip flexors and like do all these things, with 5 extra pounds on each foot. I'm just going to take what the trail gives me. And he really impressed me with just his poise and how smart he was throughout the race. He didn't, you know, I'll just get into this now. Like I love the fact that at one of the aid stations he went to sleep knowing that Ryan Sands was going to go through and likely pass him. He didn't freak out. He's not like, okay, I gotta get up and get moving. It's like, no, he just stuck to his strategy and slowly but surely, worked his way back into the lead position. And I just think he just had so much poise and confidence in his plan. And for somebody who hasn't done that many hundreds, let alone a debut 200, to kind of attack the course that way was very, very impressive.
Agreed. Totally agree 100% with that. And then, I think a shout out to Derek Lytle, who was out there filming. I think he just put out a YouTube on his YouTube channel, Juniper.
Yep, Juniper
Yeah.
Labs.
And I think that moment is actually caught on film in that, where, you see, this is also testament to Dan's crew. You see Dan come in and get ready to kind of take that rest. And his crew says to him, you just do your thing. We're not worried about it. You just do you and take a sleep right now. So his crew and he gave them so much love in every time we talked to him about the race. They were dialed, and I will say that they were dialed. This is kind of a fun fact and a fun little anecdote, down to the level that they researched beforehand whether or not he could take the Coors Light before the finish line and it not be considered out of station
Aid or
Yep.
against the rules
Yeah.
in any way.
Like we
Yeah.
have a response if that comes up. It was within a quarter mile, and so that's like a level of diligence and like professionalism that is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think something that kind of kept coming up in the live stream was people were amazed that runners could, leave their tracker at an aid station and then go to a hotel or take care of themselves, do what they need to do. And I think that this year, with last year with Mika leaving the course and then coming back, there was some questions around that. But I think this year there was just more of an understanding among, the fans and among the participants of kind of what is within the boundaries of what you can do. So I think that helped, and it just made it a little bit more clear, and it's an amazing event, right? It kind of almost makes you think like, oh, could I do 50 miles a day and then finish on a Saturday? That feels a lot more approachable than pushing through for 250 miles and, sleeping 10 minutes here and 20 minutes here and basically being a zombie for, the last day and a half. There's not many of us out there that have practiced sleep deprivation. It's it's not something that I would do on a regular basis in my life. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it made you think about that in terms of
Yeah,
like,
I did. There's
I
different,
don't know if I were ever to do
there's,
this, how would
yep,
I do this?
exactly. There's different ways to run it, and there's different ways to kind of have the adventure. The 17-year-old's name is Tug Boren. His first name is
Okay.
Tug, Tug, which is a really unique name. Last name
All right.
Bor.
Well, congrats, Tug, a 17-year-old
Yep,
competing at Cocodona
yep,
250,
from Weatherford,
the youngest
Texas.
finisher this year.
Yes, from Weatherford, Texas. So just to go back on that, shout out to Tug. Way to go. I can't imagine. I don't know. We have children that are teenagers now. I can't imagine one of my kids at 17 doing Cocodona 250. It's crazy.
Yeah, I can't either. I mean, those distances, I mean, any distance in high school felt like any distance over 5 miles felt very, very
Oh yeah.
far.
Exactly.
Um, all right. So before we ask any other questions, and if we've got some references to locations or people, there's a pretty fun little thing that Aravaipa did. They put out these, I don't know if you can see
Yep.
this, there's trading
The trading
cards
card.
that they put out, and I don't know where they were available, maybe at the expo, only available on site, but Aravaipa created and
Russ is
made
like, I don't
trading
Russ is like, I
cards.
don't know where they were available, but I have some. Just, they just
Once I heard about them, I was like, Corinne, you have to help me find these. I would love to collect these trading cards that are there. And Corinne, your friend Troy
Yeah.
Meadows was able to find a couple packages of them.
Thank you.
So in yeah, thank you, Troy, for finding those. So in the spirit of opening these out, I'm gonna throw a location out here.
Wait, I have one. Can I pick
We'll
one?
start. Yes, you can. You want to pick the first
I'll
one?
pick the first. I think I know what you're going to pick because we're going to talk about this. Crown King?
Yes, I was gonna pick Crown King. You want me to read that one?
Yeah. What's on the Crown King card?
So Crown King
See it on
has
the screen.
a picture of kind of the saloon that's there in Crown King, and I'll go ahead and read it. So each one of these cards has an effect, and then it's got a quote on it. So the effect of Crown King is the cards played this turn do not have any carbohydrate cost, and your crew is here. Refill your bottles, restock on fuel, and you have a long way to go. But the images that are here are all artist images drawn by one of Jeff Browning's sons, I believe. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
So
His son
he created some artwork.
Abraham.
Okay, it's Abraham. He created some artwork for The Chase
Hmm.
that had some of the different characters, and some of those are on these playing cards, but the playing cards expand on that, and it's an entire Cocodona theme. So
It
very cool looking
it
cards.
appears they're still available on the Aravipa shop, so maybe we'll put that link in the
Oh,
show notes if you
there you
pick
go.
some up.
Yeah, definitely do that.
Yeah,
Definitely do that. They're pretty neat.
18 cards in
Okay,
each pack, and one random one has a holograph.
that's right. One of the 18. You get all of the you get the entire series in one pack, but one of the 18 is a hologram pack card.
Yeah. So what happened at
For
Crown King?
those that are
Let's talk about Crown King.
what happened at Crown King? Well, I mean, the image that I have is just Harry Sabertis coming in well ahead of pace, well ahead of anybody else, and moving so well, looking like he was running super easy, but basically on course record watch pace immediately right out of the gate.
Yeah, 30 minutes ahead of everyone else. And then you had this chase pack of, uh, Jack Scott, Courtney, um,
Ryan
Dan,
Sands,
and
uh,
a couple other guys.
Dan Green.
Yeah, Dan was in there. Um, Super quick stops. And then, one of the stories from Crown King this year is for some reason the drop bags didn't get there. Um, I don't know what happened exactly, but I think it impacted only those who didn't have crew. So Pow, Ruiz had to kind of crowdsource some gear to be able to move on. But everybody helped him out and did that quickly, but he did have to spend some more time there. Yeah, Crown King it kind of looked like 100-mile aid station, like boom, boom, boom. So
Yeah, that's incredible. I'll play one more card here. Um, uh, I'll go with the um, Harry Houdini card
nice.
in honor of Harry's fast pace through there.
Perfect.
So it says Eldon charge in reference to last year's race, but run hard for the next 2 hours, 2 turns, pass the leader, lose 90 grams of carbs. Who's leading the race? Harry. Harry who?
Nice.
Harry Sabertas.
Yeah, who led the race for a while, this year's edition. And yeah, the crazy stat on that, you have 8 hours or so for the first 50 miles, but the another impressive stat I think is the 100-mile split, and that was, by Dan Green at that point, but 18:36 for the first 100 miles of a 250, with 12,000 feet of climbing in it. Crazy, like just putting that in reference to 100-mile, and then thinking you have to go 1.5 times more after that, is pretty insane to think about. And I think, he had 18 hours for that first 100-mile, and then I think he was maybe around 22 hours for the second 100-mile, which when you think about it, that's still, like, last year we used to talk on the live stream, oh, if you can run 2.5 consecutive 24-hour hundreds, you're going to do really well in this race. Well, like, no, you got to do better than that by hours at this point.
You do know. Yeah, I mean, 2.5 at exactly 24-hour pace gets you 60 hours, right? 48 and 12. I think, I think the mud definitely slowed people down in that second 100, and then just the distance and the time is slow in the last 100K. You got almost 60 miles in addition. 58 mid or 58 high this year. If you're just comparing just mileage, you've got to add an hour and a half for the mileage for this year, regardless of the route and the mud. So just a great performance altogether. So I guess favorite live stream moments or favorite race moments. I've got a couple in mind. One from the women's race that I think just from early on that I want to mention is that you know Courtney was not the leading lady out of the early part of the race. Rachel Entriken actually was leading the race early on and set her own pace. And at the time, I was thinking, man, I don't know if that's the move, but she really proved that she was just going after the race in her own way, regardless of what was happening around her. And I think that was pretty telling. She definitely, I think, surprised some people in terms of like how far ahead she either ended up being or even at the beginning was outpacing early on.
And I think she surprised herself a little bit too. I think that she just in talking to her real briefly afterwards and then just kind of hearing some things, I think every time she came into an aid station, she was like, whoa, like what is happening? Kind of, I'm having a day of my dreams and I'm just going to go with it. And this is amazing. But like, it just keeps happening every single time. I feel fine and I'm good. And so I think she was absolutely running within her own effort levels, but she was also like allowing herself to let that pace be okay and kind of trust, that she was having a really amazing Cocodona and just went with it. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think she was set up for this through her training and her experience with the race last year. The way she trained and the races she did leading into this, I think were really, really excellent prep. And so I kind of also just think like she put in the work and it panned out on the day. Is kind of like how I interpret it, but it was so exciting to see. Because for a while we
Yeah.
were talking about her potentially taking the win of the whole race, that could happen.
Right. Right. And she was gaining ground at one point. One of the stories in the middle of the race was the fact that they made it known that Rachel didn't know she was in the lead. Obviously, she made the pass on Courtney when Courtney was in a vehicle. I think a lot of this at the beginning of at the front of the race, there's a lot of this silent passing where you don't know where someone is in an aid station and you just keep going. It is very possible to not know what position you are in. And it became known on the live stream that Rachel was specifically not being informed that she was in first place. What do you think of that strategy by a crew? Do you feel like you would want to know that in that position? Maybe not right away, but like
Yeah.
it was it was multiple hours. It was 10, 12, 14 hours of Rachel not knowing that she was in that position.
Yeah, I kind of like it because I think that her crew knew her and they knew that she liked to like hunt people down. So leaving Courtney out there as a figurative carrot to chase, I think is very smart, and almost saving it like we're playing with a deck of cards, saving that card for when she needs the motivation of, guess what? You might be in a low point right now, but you're leading the race. Like that is a way to bring somebody back and recenter them and like give them this absolute shot of adrenaline that, they need, and to save it for a time that they really need that. So I kind of love it. And I think, I don't know, I think if I was running really well and I was in a good place, I wouldn't mind if my crew did the same thing.
Well, so I'm gonna. Courtney dropped at Mingus
Yeah,
Mountain,
108.
mile 108, and I think the closest location with the cards is going to be Fane Ranch. So I'm going to show the Fane Ranch
Ooh, that's a
card,
good one.
which has got a very cool skull with a
Yep.
snake crawling through it. And the effect for Fane Ranch is when you play this card, search for your deck for a Flota card and add it to this hand. The most visually appealing aid station in all of the land, sponsored by Satisfy. Enter with your soul crushed and leave with a Flota. So I'll also play the Flota
Yes.
card.
The float card.
And the Flota card has Mike Versteeg
Yeah.
on the card. The effect for the Flota card is when Flota is played, you gain 90 grams a card. Double this effect if you control Fane Ranch. Flat soda and shirts with holes in them. What will they think of next? You've got the Satisfy Cocodona shirt
So
on
bummed
right
I
there.
didn't get one this year because it's really cool. It's a black one. I didn't get out to Fane Ranch, and yeah, I don't know. Somebody at Satisfy, send me a Cocodona shirt, please. I will wear it all the time. But yeah, Fane Ranch is really cool. I heard it was also so challenging, and we've heard from other people that we interviewed that it's a challenging section, and it reminds me of maybe like the Leadville section where you go through the field and there's like potholes everywhere and you have to watch your footing. Yeah, I think that kind of sounds like what it's like. But also on the Flota card, they needed to put like how many milligrams of caffeine is in a Flota because it's an unknown amount. For all we know, it's like 300, and that could be the reason I ran so well at Javelina because there's 300 milligrams of caffeine in every single one of the Flotas, which I did have at every aid station. But yeah, no, Flota is like no longer. So if you have any, hold on to it. I think I have like 2 cans stashed away. It's going to be valuable.
I've got a collector can as a conversation piece at my office.
Nice. People always come up and say, "What the heck is that?"
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, a few people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got my Black Canyon buckle. I've got my Leadville coin
Nice.
and my Flota can are kind of the key pieces that are up at the office.
The pillars of ultra running. That's awesome. Those are good cards. So maybe we should talk a little bit about, some of the other kind of competitive strategies. Like Dan, like we said, was really patient. He was up there. He told me afterwards he wanted to be near the leaders, and that was his goal. But he just wanted to be near the leaders. He didn't necessarily want to be leading. And that's kind of what he did all day. And he's absolutely just stuck it. Just like stuck everything, did not slow down. The 6 mile stretch I ran with him, we were like an 11:40 pace overall, which was 230 miles into the race.
He did a radio station interview while you were there.
He did an interview at the local radio station. Here is the news that is so exciting. Okay, not many people probably know this, and Dan, I'm just going to share this if you hear this. That he shared with me that the mayor of Huntington, West Virginia, declared May 7th Dan Green Day.
Yes. I love it.
Pretty awesome. He has like a placard, like an official thing. It's yeah, it's pretty dang cool. So I would say that Huntington, West Virginia is very, very proud of Dan Green. And I guess they were following, like the whole town was following him all week.
Well, and news for Dan Green may continue to come out because the man is number 3 now on the Western States wait list.
Yeah,
so
he's even higher. I don't know.
I saw today 3rd.
Okay. I think there's it's almost guaranteed he's going to be in.
Yeah. No, that was great. Another strategy that I think was that worked really well on the women's side is one of the women that we interviewed, Shelby Farrell, had kind of what might have looked like a really slow start. I think she might have been 20s or 30s place wise in the women's field early on in the event, and slowly but surely moved through the entire field to make her way to a top 5 finish. And one of the things that Shelby did is a lot of her training, it was very consistent mileage wise, but a lot of her training maybe looked a little bit slower. But I think she was doing a lot of training just with the entire pack that she was going to be carrying for Cocodona. And that I don't know that every runner does that. I don't know that every runner carries the pack with the size that it is for Cocodona on their training runs. And I just think, man, she must have just played it so smart throughout the day to be able to pull herself into that position.
Yeah, absolutely love it. Like we heard her just be very openly, competitive, saying she wanted to compete, be up there, which I absolutely love, calling that shot. And I mean, she just hammered, like, she had like 60 miles to go and she's like, we're going for it. We're putting in a surge, basically is what she said, at that point. And like, I just love that, I don't know. She just had this fortitude and just kind of this force about her that, she said like big dogs hunt at night, and she's like turning herself into this character and kind of just manifesting and making happen like what she wanted her experience to be. So she set like a 27-hour course personal record on the Cocodona course.
Yeah, over a day.
Yeah, that's nuts. And she ended up in 4th place, 4th female. So shout out to Shelby, way to go. So excited for her, and coming back from injury, her body holding up. She was super smart. She had her foot doctor out there, like so smart. So really
she had a great team. Her husband, who's a race director for Aravaipa in Colorado, was out there supporting. So
yeah, Mercedes Siegel Gaither paced her, was rocking a women can shirt at the finish line.
Nice, loved it.
So yeah, I saw a number of those, which was yeah, that was awesome.
The other person's training on the women's side who there was a lot spoken of early on was Lindsay Dwyer. Had kind of just like the kind of training that I think everyone thinks like, that's the kind of training I want, and volume, volume, volume. And I specifically saw in the live stream, Lindsay got to a certain point and was like, oh, thank God, a road. Like, I am ready to run on the road. I'm ready to get moving. And it reminded me of I'm going to pull the Arlen Glick card out.
Oh, yeah.
But Snarlin' Arlen here. Yeah. The story last year was, once it got to be a little bit runnable, he just really just churned and started there. And I think Lindsay had some of that effect as well in this year's race, is she got to some more runnable portions and that volume really shined through. It was like, okay, now I'm ready to like just click off some faster miles. And Cocodona is like that. It's not a 100% rugged single track course. There are hard parts, but there's also parts that you can take advantage of and move better on. And I think a good race like that is going to have a mix of both.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so crazy because, Lindsay Dwyer putting in like up to 160-mile weeks. Another person's training that I kind of just want to shout out here is Andy Jones Wilkins, because I was looking at him doing back to back around 100-mile weeks, but like 25 hours on foot. So if you look at just the time component, it's like, man, that's a lot of training and a lot. And we both listened to Crack a Brew with AJW, his recap, and like it had me in tears this on my morning run. Just he's such a good storyteller, like he really is. And so I'm just super happy for him to finish that race. Yeah, probably hopefully share the live stream with him again next year. If I don't run the race, but I don't think next year. Maybe like 2028, something like that. It's going to sell out. It opens on May 20th. It's going to sell out in like a day, guaranteed.
Yeah, that's the case too. And for anyone out there that's like, yeah, I want to do Cocodona some year, some year, some year. It's like, stories with AJW where he's running this race on behalf of his friend Rob Martin. He runs into another runner who finds out that, his dad has passed away during the event. It's like, man, you want to take advantage of what life has for you and the position that you're in to be able to do some of these things. And it's like, man, are we putting some of these things off for too long? But anyway, yeah, a little deep there, but it's just like, AJW is a great storyteller, and he's living in the moment. 57 years old and taking on an event like this, for the first time when he was anticipating doing a 100-miler. Now he's doing, 125 for himself and 125 for his friend Rob.
Yeah, and it's a good point you bring up, Russ. It really makes me think about it being. I almost had this reflection because I was watching a lot of like the Navajo runners finish. There was a lot of indigenous and native runners that finished, and they had this cool like person out there doing a kind of a drum ceremony on them as they finished, and like some of their customs are so cool. It reminded me of like a pilgrimage. And so to me, Cocodona 250 is an intersection of like a race and a pilgrimage, because a lot of people are doing this, for this deeper reason. And it is a multi-day, whether it's to get to know themselves better or to honor somebody, that's like what you do in a pilgrimage. So it's kind of crazy that it's turned into, that for a lot of people.
Kind of like the Camino, right?
Camino de Santiago. It's the Camino de Coconino.
Camino de Cocodona.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Ultra Uncover, we did 6 interviews for Cocodona. We interviewed Jeff Garmeyer. We interviewed Arlen Glick. We interviewed Kevin Goldberg, Georgia Porter, and Jameel Curry. So I've got a few thoughts about a few of the comments there, but is there anything from those interviews that played out during the day or that you were thinking of during your commentary that you could bring up that were kind of relative or interesting relative to the race?
Yeah, I think people should go back and listen to those, because like it's kind of going to be interesting to hear those stories now that we've seen what happens, because some of those people ran the race. Jameel talked about Jack Scott, who a lot of people didn't know, and he absolutely was a factor for a long time. And that was something that was just like almost devastating to watch unfold on the live stream when he, came into Camp Kippa Aid Station with a obvious injury, and you could just see how frustrated, disappointed, upset that he was that was happening. So I think about that as one. I think Arlen talked a lot about sleep being a tool, and I was pretty surprised how little sleep happened at the front end of the race here. So I think it was a tool, but it almost at the speed that people were going, kind of became a bit of a non-factor, which was super interesting. Like Shelby obviously just like crushing it and doing what she came to do is cool. Georgia, who would have thought a virus could come up. Jeff also had COVID during and ran the race with COVID. So illness again, here we are like 5 years after the start of COVID and the pandemic, and illness is still taking people out in these races, which is really interesting. And then I guess just Kevin Goldberg, like, man, he didn't have the race that he was hoping to, but like so much respect for him finishing. And all 5 of those legacy runners got their 5th finish. All 6 of them got their 5th finishes, which was incredible.
Yeah, Jeff didn't have the race he wanted, but he was still the first 5-time finisher
He
of the
celebrated
race.
that
But
line.
all five of the finishers, himself, I'm going to struggle to remember all 6 of their names, but
Jose Sosa, off the
Andy Glaze.
And there's Brian Janzik,
Yep.
and Jeff.
There's one other.
And yes, there is one other. Shoot. Okay. We'll find it. But yeah, that was so cool.
We'll shout them out. But it was really neat. They got specialized wooden plaques that said 5 times finisher. Sounded like they're already trying to think about what they're going to keep doing. Are they just going to keep rolling it back? I don't think if any of them sign up, I think all the rest of them are going to be very, very pressured to continue to sign up.
I think maybe we should do a podcast with that whole group and have them
That'd be fantastic.
Dynamic and how their discussions go and what the plan is for the future.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
awesome.
I think that's one of the best things that could happen is you turn this into a team race. Like, I think I've thought about, should Graham and I run it together and there be a co-ed team division that happens. It's absolutely something you could do in the future, is like team scoring and add additional ways to kind of tell the stories. So,
one of the things that Georgia mentioned in our interview is that they were really looking forward to like connecting with the land. And I think they really had that pilgrimage mindset. I also think that they're very competitive and they wanted to do well as well. But, they really did have kind of that pilgrimage mindset of wanting to like connect with the land, move through the different spaces and really be able to appreciate, the Bradshaws and really be able to appreciate Sedona. The Hangover Trail was like the star of the show in Sedona. It was continually talked about. And, even AJW was like, now I was maybe a little bit over my skis on the Hangover Trail. There was probably 9 miles of trail on that 250-mile race that I maybe was a little bit beyond my abilities, but obviously you made it through it and did some of those things. So shout out to Jamil for continuing to kind of just innovate even within the confines of a fairly defined course of like something that became a storyline.
Totally. All right. Anything else that observations before we do our final little segment here on debriefing how people did on picking who is going to come out on top of our celebrity either ors?
I do want to do the celebrity either ors, and I will give just a quick shout out to Free Trail, who also does Free Trail fantasy picks. I have a goal this year of continuing to pick every single event and try to scrape my way closer and closer to the top 10. I'm just sliding further back. I think the more I know about an event, the worse I do. And I was terrible at Cocodona. I think I had a bunch of folks that DNF'd, and I'm sure a lot of people did as well. But, it does seem like sometimes the more I know, the worse I do.
Yeah. Oh, another thing that's you're going to do great. At least you're going to complete them all, which is going to make you rise above the rest. So we're talking about consistency here, which you're going to crush that. Another thing that surprised me, I guess, was kind of the random baller of this year's race, which was Adair Ramirez. And that was I mean, just so cool to like learn about him and interview him, his family and his wife, and like just learn about, here's somebody who nobody had any idea who he was, and he comes out and gets third in Cocodona 250, and purely just a love for the sport, works hard, had done a backyard ultra in Mexico that does not show up on ultra sign up, where he ran 200 plus miles. So he was like prepared, and it was yeah, really emotional to see his family just kind of see his dream come true in the middle of all this.
Yeah, and I mean, I did hear that he has also done Mogollon Monster a number of times, and every year has improved his placing at a race like that. So, I don't think he came out of nowhere to do Cocodona, but he was on no one's radar in terms of picks and things like that. And then honestly, I saw him going down
Mm.
Eldon, and he looked the smoothest out of any of the runners moving down Eldon. So I think he just got stronger and stronger as the race went. And if you haven't listened to the interview that Corinne and I forget who else was with you did with Ed Ayer's wife, it was a tearjerker, and she was just so proud of him, and just her commentary of just like he works so hard, he deserves this so much, and it was a great interview, one of the highlight interviews during the live stream.
Yeah, I think it was Troy and I, and we were both just like, "Are you kidding me? Like we could have like created this if we wanted to." So it was, yeah, it was an honor. But those are the things, those are the moments and the stories that like you go to Cocodona for, is to hear these things.
Yep, yep. All right, let's get into our picks that we had our interview guests um, select. And so we did runner versus runner, who would finish first. And so we've got some scores from our interview um, panelists and our own picks. And so let's just go ahead and get started with it. So one of our matchups was the matchup of the Andes. Andy Jones Wilkins against Andy Glaze. And among the picks were tied 3-3.
So we had all of our interview guests choose, and if you want to go hear who picked who, you have to go listen to the interviews. We're not telling you, oh, Jamil picked this person and Arlen picked this person, but the scores right now were 3-3, so that was an even matchup. And at the end of the day, Andy Glaze did beat AJW, but boy, how much was it by? I don't know. I need to like,
It wasn't by much.
yeah.
Andy Glaze did have Arizona Monster on his legs ahead of Cocodona, and I think that impacted quite a few people's picks, thinking like Andy Jones Wilkins may have a very good chance against Andy Glaze in that competition. But I don't know how close they were, but they were probably pretty close. Um, both runners had their the stories out there throughout the week, and people were interested in knowing where both of those runners were.
Okay, who is next?
The next matchup is the matchup of the Kevins. So we had Kevin Russ of the Chipotle Challenge fame against Kevin Goldberg. And maybe this was not a fair fight, because Kevin Goldberg has run in the top 10 at Cocodona many, many times. And he did pretty well against Kevin Russ as well this time. Maybe didn't have the race he wanted, but still was, I think, over 20 hours ahead of Kevin Russ's almost 100-hour finish. I think Kevin Russ, I watched him come across the line right at 98 hours into the event.
Yeah, so way to go, Kevin Goldberg. Going back there on the Andes, AJW was about 10 hours behind Andy Glaze.
And our panelists also tied in the competition of the Kevins 3-3. So very close.
Very close. Okay, then we have the Haynes, Cam Haynes and Jesse Haynes. It was Jesse Haynes had 4 picks to Cam Haynes had 2. And this was an upset. Cam Haynes with the victory there. I think I was quite impressed with how Cam Haynes, who I didn't realize is 57 years old, did. Saw a video of him I saw a video of him at a hotel, sleeping in a bed. So
okay.
He did that.
So Cam Haynes, 57, same age as Andy Jones Wilkins, 57.
Yeah. and he ran it in 84 hours.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
19th overall. He was in the top 20. That's, I mean, respect. That's awesome. And also didn't realize that he has multiple million. I knew he had a lot of followers, but I didn't realize he had like millions of followers. And there was a lot of hammers in the chat. A lot of hammers.
His team was in the chat. Keep hammering. Saw a lot of the Cocodona Speedland shoe out there, the red Cocodona shoe.
How about the brilliant publicity move on his part of launching a book that comes out in the middle of
the event?
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Very smart. Very smart. It's like, that is a testament to how like visible Cocodona is, that somebody would kind of use the platform of it to
would pick that to do that. Yeah,
exactly.
The next matchup we had was the Satisfy matchup, Max Jolliffe versus Michael Versteeg. And actually, Max had 4 out of the 6 picks. So it was 4-2 Max over Michael, despite Michael being a previous winner of the event.
Yeah. And man, that was a brutal one, because they both ended up dropping. But just like, I don't know. I was super impressed with how Versteeg was running for a long, long time. Everyone and their mother loves Max, because the chat was going insane if we didn't give an update every 15 minutes about Max Jolliffe. And, just hope he's okay, because he unfortunately ended up at the hospital and had to drop at mile 237, which is, brutal, heartbreaking. All right. We have next up the 200-mile specialist. We had pitted Rachel Entriken against Mika Thews. We only had a couple of our guests answer this one, but they chose Mika Thews 2-0 over Rachel Entriken, and they were wrong, whoever did that, because obviously Rachel Entriken masterclass, winning by 40 miles essentially over the next female, just a baller of a day, and we all know what happened there. So we were all wrong. should have picked Rachel Entriken.
That was one that I missed on my free trail picks as well. I had Mika quite high, and did not give Rachel enough credit. So that's my bad. The next one we had was the Flagstaff women, Georgia Porter and Sarah Ostazuki, who both were running high in the race throughout. Sarah ended up finishing 3rd, I believe, and ran very consistently. Sounded like she may be done with her Cocodona journey, from the sounds of it. But as we mentioned earlier, Georgia, they ended up leaving their tracker at mile 160, potentially attempting to go to Flagstaff and then come back and finish the event, and ended up not finishing the event.
They did come back and give it another 30 miles to see turn it around.
Yeah.
But I think you can say Georgia did everything that they absolutely could to try to finish the race, and just unfortunately the illness was the stopping point. So shout out to Sarah Ostazuski, huge 3rd place podium finish. I don't know if that's an improvement on her time, but just congratulations to her on kind of 3 amazing Cocodonas.
Yeah. The picks were 3-2 in favor of Georgia for that particular matchup. The next matchup was Finn Melanson versus Jeff Garmire. And Jeff had the majority vote with a 4-2 advantage. And both of these gentlemen finished in the top 10, but Finn was able to edge out Jeff in this one. I do think Jeff was a little compromised, having COVID during the race, but Finn Melanson, I think, again, another impressive performance by him.
Totally. Finn, way to go. 66 hours, 29 minutes. That's huge.
Fifth place.
5th place, which is a 2-place improvement from last year, I believe. So just so cool. obviously took all of his learnings and put them into practice. And yeah, took some advice from Jeff Browning in the middle of the race to actually sleep and abandoned his no sleep strategy and slept, which he said was the right call. So, also consumed a lot of milk. I heard great footage coverage. Shout out to Emily Cameron, who did all of the amazing. Oh, we've got a raw milk card.
You just played the raw milk card.
Yeah. So what do you get?
We won't read it.
No,
Keep
what do you
continue.
get when you play the raw milk card?
Raw milk can only be played if Milk and Mikey is in play. You cannot DNF when this card is in play.
Okay, well, neither.
Tired of drinking sugary water and eating gummy bears? Try unpasteurized milk.
Neither Mike McKnight nor Finn DNF'd, so they followed the card rules.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go. You got it.
And we have one.
Okay, last matchup here. A matchup of the contending men's leaderboard. We had Harry Sabertes versus Ryan Sands, and the jury was tied on this one again, 3-3. So 3 people picked Harry, 3 people picked Ryan, and this one was pretty close. Harry went out hot and was the early leader. Ryan was in contention for the win towards the end of the event and ended up finishing second. But Harry stuck in it and stayed there and finished 4th place.
Yeah.
The one thing that I was going to say about Harry was
M4 overall 5th. But yes.
M4 overall 5th, correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, because Rachel finished ahead of Harry. The one thing I was going to say about Harry was, I think maybe some of the commentary is like, oh, you went out too fast, yada, yada. I think he took a fall. I saw some video where he had one of his poles sticking out the back, and he was in an aid station. Pretty sure he snapped one of his poles, probably on a fall. But the guy is just such a veteran that just stayed with it. And I think his running gait, his and Michael Versteeg's, they look smooth. They look very efficient, even with large packs. Like Harry has a large pack. Michael somehow never seems to have a large pack. I don't really understand this. I don't know what he's carrying or where he's carrying it. Maybe it's like a Harry Potter thing where it's just this tiny pack, but you can fit your entire house inside of it or something. I don't know. But the commentary is that Harry seems to move very efficiently with a large pack.
I think that Versteeg has an invisible pack that was made by Satisfy. It's invisible, but he is actually carrying everything in it. It's just, it costs $350,000 and it's invisible.
That's pretty amazing. It's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah, especially if it doesn't weigh anything. No, I think he had a waist belt on a lot of the time, but it probably only had a single flask in it. I mean, he did throw a vest on every now and then, but not usually. He had no shirt and something around his waist and looked like Jesus running through the desert in sandals.
Yeah, that's his MO. So, but anyway, it was a fun thing to do with our interview guests and fun to recap here. And like I said, if you want to know how any individual interviewer did with their picks, you can go back and listen.
And I heard Derek Lytle say that he thinks that Cocodona is basically the Western States of 200s now. So I don't think that, the race is getting any smaller or any less, kind of visible from a media standpoint. And can't wait to see, what it brings next year. Maybe we'll do coverage again.
Yeah. Okay. One last one. I want to hear one name of a person that has not run Cocodona that you'd like to see run Cocodona. I've got one in the hopper if you want to think about that answer for a minute, unless you have it off the top of your head.
No, you go. You go.
Okay. So the person that I want to see run Cocodona is somebody who was in the field for 2025, but ultimately ended up either deferring or not running in 2025, and that's Leah Yingling. And I think Leah's really got something for this distance when she decides to take it on. And so I'll be really excited to see. I was excited for the Courtney versus Leah and just the entire women's field, honestly, but Leah Yingling is my person that I really want to see run Cocodona 250.
Nice. I love that. All right. I think I will go with Jasmine Paris.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I would like to see Jasmine Paris at Cocodona because I think that she's probably someone who knows the most about herself in terms of sleep from the Barkley. And I'm super curious, obviously, with her, she's great at climbing. But I'd really like to see how her skill set like stacks up against the times.
Yeah, love it. Well, I think that's a great spot to put a pin in it for today. That this was a Fire Road episode. Looks like we went about an hour six. This is perfect. So hopefully you can catch this on a run when you're out there. And we're looking forward to bringing more races and more coverage of upcoming summer events.
Yeah, if there's a race that you think we should do a deep dive on for one of the main episodes, let us know. Give us a follow on YouTube and Instagram, and we have some pretty exciting things hopefully coming up this summer. So stay tuned to hear about what we'll be doing in the coming months.